Hey guys, this is Onsby and this is my family. We are the Roses, and we thought we would start out on our first video by introducing you to each of our children and telling you a little bit of history about us and our camping lifestyle and what we enjoy to do. So to start off with, you can meet our kids. This is Timothy. He is our oldest at home right now. Tim is almost 14 years old. Say hi to the folks, Tim.
Hi. This is Caleb. He'll be 11 in August.
Hi.
And next we have Elijah, whom is almost 10 years old. He is loves trucks and planes and diggers and all kinds of stuff. Say hi, Elijah.
And scooters.
And scooters too, that's right. Say hi.
And this is Colin. He's our youngest. He'll be 8 this week.
So we are the Roses, and we are roaming
Hi.
with the Roses. That's Colin wants to say hi. You missed your cue, buddy. All right, boys, you guys can go play while Mom and Dad will finish. So that's our family that we've introduced you to. We do have one oldest son that no longer lives with us. His name is Aiden, and you may see him in some of our pictures along the way, and hopefully you'll eventually see him in some of our videos as well. But we wanted to start off today with telling you just a little bit about our history and how we wound up where we are and kind of where we started. So I'll toss it over to Jessie and let her talk a bit about herself.
Well, Onsby and I met when we were in the Marines. We're both bandsmen and just co-workers while we were stationed together a long time ago. And we got back together about
6 years ago?
Through Facebook. I commented on his post, and then he commented back, and several texts and drives later, we got married.
The wonders of social media.
At the time, I was working at Washington Music Center. I fixed instruments. Now I work at Buckeye Brass and Winds in Plain City, Ohio.
So a little bit about me. As Jess mentioned, I was in the Marine Corps. I did 11 years as a trombonist and conductor. And then I got out in, would have been 2007 in October. Weird time of year to get out in October, so my degree is in music education, but I got a job being a conductor, but a conductor of another type. I tell my students all the time that I've always been a conductor, but for 5 years I was actually a freight conductor for various railroads. I worked for Norfolk Southern for a few years and then eventually for Canadian Pacific. Lived in northern Indiana. After that 5 years, at the very end of it, my late wife passed away. And we then moved on, and I kind of landed accidentally back into the classroom as the high school and middle school band director at Hampton High School and elementary school in Hampton, Tennessee. After a couple of years of that, I decided I wanted to go back to grad school, and that's around the same time that Jess and I had started dating. And luckily, through her craziness, she was willing to marry a man with 4 kids already, and she uprooted herself from Maryland, and we all moved to North Carolina, where I did my master's degree at Appalachian State University. At the end of that degree, we decided that I would go on for my doctorate. I just turned 40 years old and decided that if it was going to get done, it should be done now. And that brought us here to where we currently live and are getting ready to leave, getting ready to move from here in Columbus, Ohio, where I just completed my doctorate of musical arts in conducting here at Ohio State University. Go Bucks! As you can see, I've got my Buckeye gear on. And over the course of that time, we have done a fair amount of traveling. We've been very blessed in the fact that we started off traveling when we first started seeing each other, and we thought we'd check it out and see if the boys would like it, and we found that they did. So over that course of time, we have done a bit of traveling. We're getting ready to move to Sioux Center, Iowa, where I've just accepted a job as the director of instrumental ensembles at Dordt University in Sioux Center. And we're looking forward to our trips back and forth to Iowa here while we're looking for a home, as well as lots of travels in the future. So just to tell you a little bit about what we have done in the past, whenever Jess and I first met, she owned an older Coleman camper.
A 68 Coleman pop-up.
1968.
On its last legs. We had replaced the canvas, I replaced the floor, but nothing else inside worked.
So essentially it was one small step above a tent. No AC, nothing. But the first summer that we were together in Boone, we hooked the camper up and we went to Texas. Of all places, a camper with no air conditioning, we went to Texas. And even with that, we found that it was something that not only did she and I enjoy, but something that the family seemed to enjoy together. So we decided that we would upgrade, and the very next year we upgraded to a larger pop-up. It had a slide out, and it had quite a bit more room. It actually would fairly comfortably sleep all 7 of our family members. Our oldest was still at home at the time. He and Timothy would sleep on the slide out that made into a bed. The 3 little boys would sleep on the queen size end, and then of course Jess and I would sleep on the king size end.
But Aiden was 11 back then, and all the boys were significantly smaller than they are now.
The first trip, I think that major trip that we made with our upgraded pop-up was between the first and second years of my graduate school, my master's degree at App State. So we went to Ithaca, New York, and spent an entire week there, where Jess was lucky enough to spend the entire week while I was off conducting bands in the camper with the 5 boys.
Yes, and I tried to homeschool that summer in the pop-up, and that was a disaster. After I tried to homeschool, I handmade gifts for all of their teachers. I love those ladies.
So we then traveled on up into Canada to Manitoulin Island, where we spent a week. In the midst, we stopped for I think 3 days at Niagara Falls, did some fun stuff there. It was actually over the 4th of July that year. Went to Manitoulin Island for about a week, and then we actually drove around through Canada and back down into Michigan. Visited some family members and toured Mackinac Island. That's right, Mackinac Island. We spent about a half a day there. I had been there previously, and then we visited some folks there. Eventually ended up back down in Indiana, where I had a guest conducting engagement with the Elkhart Municipal Band, which I'm sure that you'll see more of in our continuing videos, because they're a great group of musicians that I'm lucky enough to continue working with. And then made our way back to Boone. That was a great summer. We spent about 4.5 weeks on the road. We did some smaller trips in the midst of that, but really our big camping trip came in our move to Ohio State.
Our housing fell through at the very last minute. I had planned, we had a lot of snow days that year, and so I had planned for us to be camping the last week. Well, the boys had school into June, and we had to move out of our house Memorial Day. So I had packed us for 1 week of camping, but I was pretty thorough in my packing, and it turned out to be a godsend, really, that I packed so well, because our housing fell through, and Onsby came to Ohio to find us a place to live, and I took the boys to Texas, and we stayed with my sister for a little bit, and then we found a house, but it wasn't available until August 15th. And Onsby says, "You think we can stay in the camper for till August?" And I said, "No, are you nuts?"
So she conveniently said, "No, that's not going to work. 11 and a half, 12 weeks in the camper." Well, we really ended up not having any choice. So after a couple of weeks of Aiden and I actually looking for a home while her and the other boys were in Texas, Aiden and I flew down to Texas and drove back with them. And I think it was our first or second night here in Columbus. We were actually out at Buckeye Lake at the KOA there. All the boys were in the bed, and Jess and I were sitting outside having a glass of wine and just chatting, and said, if we're going to have to pay to be in a campground, we should do something rather than just sitting here in a campground all summer. So the next morning, we put the pop-up down, hooked it up to our minivan, and headed west. I had some work things that I had already planned to do out west anyway, but I was initially only going to go out for a couple of days and then come home. But we decided, you know what? Let's go see some stuff. So we initially started across the country, and on our way to Rocky Mountain National Park and the Rocky Mountain National Park area there, and we visited a bunch of different things on our way out. I'm a huge railroad buff, having worked for the railroad and growing up as a kid. Every kid wants to be a train engineer. So we saw some railroad museums.
And I picked up the row by row, one from each state that we went through, so I could quilt up the rows.
So she's an avid quilter, so we picked up all those, as well as we visited, I think it was in Lincoln, Nebraska, a beautiful quilt museum. Saw as much stuff as we could, kind of one of those trips where we didn't plan anything specific, but if we saw a brown sign along the highway and it looked like something cool to see, then we went and saw it. So we eventually arrived in the Rocky Mountain National Park area. We stayed in the Fort Collins KOA. One of the fun stories we like to tell is the boys got up the first morning we were there, and they were all still fairly young then, and we woke up to, I think, Timothy coming back to the camper saying, "Hey, we've been out and the playground's closed." "Oh, okay, what's the problem there?" "Oh, there's a rattlesnake on it."
Rattlesnake.
Oh my God, I am not a snake lover. So we stayed there for a few days, even amongst the rattlesnakes, which they did remove from the playground later on. The park there had a guy take them off. But then we moved and we left Fort Collins in the Rocky Mountain area, and we went on up to Cheyenne. We visited there for a while. We then went from there on to the Grand Teton National Park, which is basically connected with Yellowstone.
Lost a tire on the way.
It's not a trip with us, and you'll come to find out as you see some of our further planned videos that you don't travel with the Rosas without losing a tire. So we blew a tire, learned a very hard lesson there because we had a spare, we replaced it, but then we blew another tire in the middle of Yellowstone National Park, and that one became a huge issue because we did not have another spare. Luckily, through the kindness of the camping community, there was a gentleman that he and his family were camping behind us the second morning we were there, saw that we had a blown tire. We had the camper towed to the RV park, and they had some mishaps coming across the Continental Divide. Their camper was destroyed, and he had a tire that he ended up giving us. I actually wrote him a check because I didn't want him to give it to us for free, and they never cashed it. So that tells you a little bit about the kindness of people that are out there doing this as well. So on our way back, we visited Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse. We spent a number of days in South Dakota, in Rapid City, South Dakota. We went through and saw Custer's Last Stand at Little Bighorn. We did Devil's Tower, and saw just as much as we could on our way back to Ohio. So now we've lived here for 3 years. We've done some small camping trips, nothing on that size.
The 11 weeks in the pop-up kind of ruined me on camping for about a year.
We took about a year off after that.
Yeah.
And then coming into this summer, knowing that we would be moving, we decided that it was time for us to upgrade yet again. We have 4 of our 5 boys at home now, and last year we actually went to Alaska. We did not drive, but we rented an RV while we were there to check it out and see if it's something that we would like, and we adored it.
Yeah.
So we got this earlier this year, actually just about 2 months ago. We upgraded to a beautiful used 2003 Mini Winnie Winnebago. It's sits on a Ford F450 frame. It easily sleeps our entire family. There's a queen bed in the back for Jess and I. Timothy sleeps on the couch that makes to a bed. Colin sleeps on the table that makes to a bed. And Elijah and Caleb sleep up above the cab, which is actually larger than our bed in the back. It's actually really comfortable. We've used it a couple of times now. One of our videos that you'll see very soon is our trip to Sioux Center, Iowa, when we went out just recently, last week and a half ago, and to look for a home and to let Jess and the boys see where our new home was going to be. They had never been out there since I had done my interview.
Coming from the pop-up, our new RV has 2 slides. It feels like a mansion coming from the pop-up.
It's huge. It's 29.5 feet long. Slide out in the living room, a slide out in the bedroom. It has a 3-burner stove. It's just amazing. It's got an oven. We've tried a couple of times cooking on the way down the road. We found that that's probably not the ideal way to do it because things are bouncing around. But it's still very easy to just pull off at a rest area and fix lunch, or like we did, and you'll see later in another video on our trip to Iowa. It was a 2-day trip out and a 2-day trip back, and the night in between we just pulled into a rest area and slept overnight, and we didn't have to pay for lodging, and we didn't have to worry about where we were going to be. We just found where we were getting tired, we pulled off and slept.
And one of the best parts of our upgrade is we get our own potty. We are no longer a slave to campground bathrooms.
So part of what we love about camping and RVing is we're huge lovers of the national park system. As you can see, we've been to Yellowstone, we have been to Rocky Mountain, we've been to Grand Teton, we've been to a number of the various different national parks monuments.
And Denali up in Alaska.
Denali in Alaska, and our goal is to eventually see all of the largest national parks and as many of the smaller ones and monuments as we can. We're hoping in the next year or so, maybe on spring break, we'll be able to make it to the Grand Canyon. We'd like to get up to Glacier. We'd like to get out to Yosemite. I've been to the Smokies, both of us actually have, but we'd like to take the kids and head down there at some point.
The national parks are so cool, and those have been preserved for us, and we love them so much. We want to see them be preserved for our kids and for our grandkids, but they're here for us, for you guys, so go see them. Go see what's there. It's amazing.
If you don't know the history of our national park system, I highly encourage you to read about it. It's very interesting, and we are incredibly lucky that our leadership many decades ago decided that they would preserve these amazing, huge, many of them, swaths of the land so that they could be kept as they are and that we could enjoy them. So we'll post a link actually to the national park system down below, as well as you'll find any other links that we might think that you might enjoy from watching our videos. So that's kind of the purpose behind this, is not only to document what we do so that our kids and our grandkids can eventually look back on it and hopefully be able to see us and see that we did, but just to illustrate that there's so much world out there for us to see, and if you sit around and you don't do it, then you'll never see it. But if you take a moment and you get out, then you will. One of the things that we promised each other whenever we got married was that we wouldn't just talk about seeing things and doing things, that we would actually do them. And we've pretty much held true to that since we've been together. We just passed our 4th anniversary not long ago. So that's pretty much everything about us. We'll have videos coming up. I hesitate to tell you how often, but the nice thing is if you hit subscribe and ring the notification bell, then whenever we post a video, then you'll get a notification that it's up, and you can come see our travels with us, and hopefully that will motivate you to get out and do some traveling as well. I do want to send a shout out to You, Me, and the RV, whom we have been avidly watching their YouTube channel for the past few months, and they're really, I guess I should say, what motivated me to make these videos. It took some coaxing to get Jess to get on the camera, but I think it'll be a lot of fun, and hopefully you all, as well as our friends and family around the nation and all of the people that we know, can enjoy some of the sights and scenes with us. So again, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and we'll see you as we roll on down the road.